Hey guys, I'm Ben, and welcome to another episode of Underground Reviews in Extremis Edition. Today we're going to be looking at the Extreme Metal Masters Meshuggah and their new album, Immutable. So the impact that Swedish legends Meshuggah have made on metal is undeniable. Forming all the way back in 1987, and yes, it's hard to believe they've been around so long, Meshuggah are one of the true pioneers of extreme music. Moving from their technical thrash roots, as exemplified on their debut album 1991's Contradictions Collapse, to their monumental leap forward to the genre-creating progressive gent masterpiece from 1995, Destroy, Erase, Improve. From there, the band would continue to evolve their new sound, which would reach perhaps its most potent expression on 2008's Obzen, with the song Bleed becoming one of the most well-known and copied riffs in metal history. Meshuggah not only created a sound for themselves, but as I mentioned, they created an entire genre and have influenced and continue to influence countless bands in both the world of extreme metal and in other genres of music as well. From my own point of view, I felt that after Obzen, the material, while still strong, no longer seemed to be so urgently and potently pushing forward, creating somewhat of a holding pattern for the band, albeit a high-level one. I know fans will disagree with that take, but I felt fairly unenthused with their output of the last decade. So that brings us to Immutable. And for the first time since Obzen, I feel the band have injected some much-needed life into the proceedings. Immutable opens with Broken Cog, which begins with a fairly simple, at least for Meshuggah anyway, riff, which then builds, but not initially with heaviness, but rather with meditative etherealness and spoken style vocals, all of which will actually sort of return at various points stylistically throughout the rest of the album as well. Even though I think it's a strange way to open the album, I found myself really enjoying it. Of course, the song does eventually ramp up the heaviness, but it's a nice direction shift that makes you wonder what else is coming. When the next track, The Abysmal Eye, kicks off, it's more familiar and expected, with the bludgeoning riffs of Frederick Thorndal and Martin Hagstrom on the guitars, backed up by Dick Lofgren's bass grooves and Thomas Harky's angular, insane drumming, and the familiar bark of Jens Kidman on the vocals, all making their return to what has really been their bread and butter for decades now. The song God He Sees in Mirrors is another standout and opens with a classic kick-ass riff and grooves hard, and like several other tracks, sees Frederick employ his favorite guitar solo technique, which is a kind of a weird, spacey tapping thing, which definitely sounds cool, but, it'd be nice to hear a ripping guitar solo once in a while with this music. The song They Move Below has a strangely gentle beginning, which does help to retain the album's trance-like and meditative quality. When the heavy riff eventually bludgeons its way in and roundhouse kicks you in the face, the payoff feels all the better for the gentle beginnings. Meshuggah are sounding absolutely in top form here too, and that combined with the excellent production makes for an extremely pleasing sonic experience. While there aren't any songs on Immutable that are as immediate as Bleed or Future Breed Machine, The whole album is remarkably consistent and enjoyable, with each track having its own proper charm and power, making, the whole perhaps greater than the sum of its parts here. So Immutable most certainly hasn't reinvented the wheel or offered anything overly revolutionary here. However, it does see Meshuggah offering up their most engaging and interesting material since Obzen, at least in my opinion. I would probably prefer it if the band would have reduced the runtime, but maybe that's just the old guy in me who prefers shorter albums, especially when they're coming from the extreme end of the metal pool. It can get a little fatiguing. Anyway, nevertheless, Immutable is certainly a very strong album from these veterans, and I gotta say, it makes me very happy to see them still going strong after all these years. So, how would I rate this album? Well, it is a good album, but perhaps lacking a couple of the real standouts like the tracks I mentioned before. So, for that reason, I'm going to give this album a very strong 8 out of 10. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Stay metal, and see you next time.